Good evening, guys. Sorry, I missed it by just 5 minutes. There were beautiful vanilla skies just a few minutes ago. And those skies will be a perfect example, an illustration what I want to talk about today. And what about it I want to talk about today is why, when you're born in 1984, you know we're not in a simulation. So probably by now you figured out that I was born in 1984. That's why I'm referring to that year. And that year is spider webs. That year is so special for many reasons. Of course, you could mention Orwell's book 1984 that he wrote and released in 1948. Uh, you could mention the fact that even the pop culture, 1984 is referred to in many, many different aspects. Um, so, really, why I feel that way about our world and the fact that I see all the time videos and people talking about, yes, we're in a simulation, and it's the Matrix, the blue pill, and this and all that narrative, and it just makes me laugh. Man, when you're born in 1984, you're born in a world where the digital era has already kind of started, but only in really like small groups of people are using it, yeah, like some part of the military, maybe, like financial institutions and so on, maybe already in there, but it's not what it is today. Okay. uh by far, let's put it this way, a lot of people are still analog. To put it bluntly, when I learned how to wrote when I was a kid, they gave us like a feather and a pot of ink. So that's how old I am, guys. When you're born in 1984, you learn how to use a freaking feather to as a pen, as a pencil. So anyway, the that transition that people from my generation, and like I know they renamed my generation. I heard about it like a couple weeks ago. My wife was mentioning it. Actually, she said like, yeah, apparently we're not millennials anymore. She said, and I said, oh, what are we? I said, we're xennials or something like this. So a mix of X and millennials. So, oh, interesting. And why is that? And she mentioned that transition from a more analog lifestyle to a digital life. For example, when I was a kid, we're still using landline. Even like to my teenage, to be honest, it was a landline world. You had to remember your friend's number, all kinds of weird stuff like this that we're doing. And being a kid in the 80s, I mean, the 80s were so cool. And I understand why people that grew up, let's call it in less vibrant times, imagine growing up during COVID or being a teenager. Like, uh, imagine like your high school graduation year is like 2020, bro. Man, I understand why they think like we're in a simulation. Like it's they didn't got such a nice life. Let's put it that way. We had such a great life. If you're born in the 80s, you went through so many things like the 2K, the 2K bug, like whatever. Like people thought that in 2000s, like the computers in the night of the 31st of December 1999 to the 1st of January, everything will go like bananas and bazookas. You know what I mean? They were like, people were prepping for an apocalypse. Um, like you went through so many nice stuff. Like the 90s were like full of life. Uh, man, we had like my my kids movie stars. They were like Robin Williams, like Mr. Fire, whatever the name was. Like like he was making like those voice over, for Aladdin, and like I don't know, like they had those complete artists like starting their career too. Like I'm talking about Brad Pitt, and they were like such great actors too. They were at their maturity, and I'm talking about male actors, but also like actresses were like just fantastic. It was a great time in Hollywood. Like the Western culture was like winning. We won the Cold War. That's what I went through. I went through the end of history. The West won the Cold War. Capitalism rocks. Like even if they were saying all the time that the economy was like not so good, but actually was booming, it was the opposite of now. They were telling us, yeah, the economy is not so good, but actually it was booming. It was like when the boomers made the most money is actually in the 80s and the 90s. Before that, their stuff was worthless. Like it's still in the 80s, they had like economic crisis, inflation, and so on, and boom, the 90s hit, bro. It was like, pooh, a spaceship going through the sky. Like that's when we had the most growth. The markets went through the roof. Like he had it in a bubble in the 2000s with the dot-com bubble, but it was a solid bull market back then, boys. Um, I mean, yes, the 80s they were not so good, but after that, like when I started to be a teenager, like we had that impression that the world was taking off. Um, and also in some ways there are some disappointing things happening. Like I'm old enough to remember that we're drilling for nuclear war and so on. Uh, we saw famines. There were the famines. Only people that were born in 1984 will probably remember that. Older and younger people wouldn't care. Like, but for us, it was quite impactful. We're growing up, and they were showing those ads on TVs. It was poor kids that were dying from starvation. You don't see that stuff anymore. But like they wanted the target was us. We're the kids, the Western kids. It wasn't like directly saying you're responsible, but they was saying like you need to do something about it. So a lot of people of my generation, like they went into volunteering, they went into humanitarian work, they went to serve in the military, that kind of stuff. A lot of people of my generation took oaths and helped their brothers and sisters. Like that's a common trend you see a lot in my generation. Um, so why you're gonna tell me like there's no way you can tell for sure that we're not in simulation or that we're like it's a reality or whatever. And we're creating simulation all the time, and it's just a matter of time that our computers are powerful enough to generate like simulation comparable to what we experience in reality. In the depth of colors, like everything, the resolutions and the feelings that we experience. But maybe we're like in the original like shell though. Like it's possible. There's an original world in any simulation. You have to peel the layer of the onion. I bet we're like in the real world. That's what I bet. I really do believe we're in the real world. And my life, my experience, my fellow men from my era, people, men and women, of course, people I grew up in my world, they have, I'm sure, some opinion about that. Anyway, what's your opinion? What do you think? Do you believe we're like in a simulation? Do you feel the world is just a computer program that we have to live through? Let me know in the comment, okay? Until then, I really appreciate your time and have a good night.